Wonderful. Welcome, everybody. We're so glad to have you for Suzie Buchholz's artist talk today. Thank you all so much for joining. My name is Rose Ginocchio, and I am the executive director of the Leo Marchutz School of Painting and Drawing. And we are so thrilled to have Suzie here to give a talk with us today, and so grateful for her time that she spent putting it together. So I'm going to very briefly read an introduction about Suzie, and then I am going to hand things over to her to give her talk, and then we will have time for questions and discussion at the end. So without further ado, Suzie Buchholz is a Bay Area-based abstract painter with a playful yet rebellious approach to the tradition of abstract expressionism. Her process is highly physical, driven by an instinct for harmony of color and form. Suzie holds a BFA from the San Francisco Art Institute and a certificate from the Atelier du Soleil in Aix-en-Provence, France. She attended the Leo Marchutz School of Painting and Drawing in Aix-en-Provence in the late 90s. Her work has been exhibited throughout the US and Europe and is in the collections of the Presidio of San Francisco, the Bay Area Discovery Museum, Jurassic, and numerous corporate and private collections. So with that, I am going to turn things over to Suzie.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining. Good morning and good evening to wherever you are in the world. I'm so honored to have the opportunity to do this. I just I want to start by thanking a few people who were pivotal, who were really consequential in a life-changing experience that I had living in France in Aix-en-Provence. And I don't know if they've joined this morning, but I particularly want to thank Monique and Dominique Fayard, who totally encouraged me. I studied with Monique as well, and they were so welcoming and wonderful to me. Linda and Jean-Jacques Delpech were also incredibly kind and really made my landing in Aix-en-Provence by accident, all those 30 years ago, a soft landing, and gave me such a wonderful impression of French people. Also, Kathy Midgley, whom I also met in Aix, who spent her whole, an American who spent her whole adult life in Aix-en-Provence, raised two children there, and has become, all these people I'm mentioning have become lifelong friends of mine. And also, I want to thank Alan Roberts for his insights and encouragement when I was there, just really making me feel like I had talent. And also the fact that I came when I was in a middle-aged person, not a college or high school student, and encouraged me to draw on all of my life experience and the richness that I have from going through life to my work. And because of the help and encouragement of all of these people, I made a life-changing decision when I got back to San Francisco to enroll in the San Francisco Art Institute and get a degree in painting. And that wouldn't have happened had it not been for all those people. So I just want to say a really heartfelt thank you for helping me put me on that path. That has been the best thing that ever happened to me. So with that, I'm going to run through a little slideshow, and I'll just say, as a preface to my work, I started out doing still lifes and landscapes when I was in France. I had no idea that I would be an abstract painter someday, but I did learn the skills of observation and color theory, and mostly just learning to see and express. Those things translate no matter what art form you're studying, and they made all the difference for me. I now kind of see my work as painting as an opportunity to put some joy out there in the world, and it's sort of my own personal act of resistance to all the things that I feel like are out of control in my life, that I can at least bring some light and some joy into the conversation. So that's really what drives everything that I do when I come into my studio every day. So I'm gonna just give you my introduction to X. I lived in the building owned by Monique and Dominique Fayard. This was the view from my bedroom or from my living room window. And I mean, it was a charmed lifestyle. I got to hear the bells in the bell tower every day and watch the birds come flying out, and it just was fantastic. This was the other view that I had from my apartment. Sticking my head out the window a little bit, I got to watch the Mount Sainte Victoire in all of the seasons and all of the colors and all of the times of day. And I had no idea when I was fascinated with this mountain that I would eventually end up at the Marchutz School and be doing plein air painting. So this was one of my early, please don't laugh. Good thing you're all muted. This is my humble and early foray into drawing from nature. And it's kind of ironic that the subject that we looked at so much was actually the thing that I was fascinated with outside my window in my apartment in X. So I'm going to show you a short video that talks about my process. In my work, hopefully, I'm creating something that feels light and bright and joyful. It's about communicating an emotion or a mood or a state of being. I always start with some kind of marks or gestures so that I have something to respond to. I really like working on the floor because it feels even more free. You can feel the energy when you're just throwing the brush across the canvas. I would categorize it as emotional abstraction. You can't fake it. You can't manufacture that because you know, as a viewer, you feel when the marks are authentic. It's really about something that feels yummy and textural and makes you want to go into the painting, kind of. And that's what I'm going for. So I'll just walk you through a few of my paintings so you can just see where I went from that first painting of the mountain to today. These are all oil paintings and of various different sizes. This one is 16 by 16, but I mostly work in really large format. As you can see, I'll go back a little bit. The color palette is different every time. I really don't have a plan. I'm not looking at anything. When I come into the studio, I put the canvas up on the wall and I just start painting. I pick three colors. I mix up a palette and then I start painting. So you can see the various different palettes that, maybe it's my mood, maybe it's, I don't know what drives it, but this is a large one. This was 74 by 74 inches. This is a painting that was a lot of fun for me, and I've actually ended up doing a couple of commissions for similar paintings from this painting. It's been well received. This is a very small painting, and I don't know how much of the texture you can see, but this one has really very thick paint, and a lot of it was done with palette knife. This is another painting that I did on the floor. I love working on the floor because it takes away some of the control. Plus, I can make huge arm gestures more easily when I'm working on the floor. This is actually the painting that's behind me, on the wall behind me. This is another painting that I made entirely on the floor. So you can see the palette is very different, and going from here to here, you can kind of see some of my work tends to feel kind of floral, and this has all happened in the last year. I had a major bout with breast cancer a year ago, and I had major surgery, and I am now cancer free and healthy and completely recovered. But it kind of changed what was coming out in my studio, and some things became a lot more floral, where this was more of a style that I was working in. And this is actually this year, so it's new as well, but it's indicative of the style that I was working in. And then things started just looking a little more floral for some reason. This is another little video I'm going to play for you. This was done as a demonstration, and full disclaimer, this one was done with acrylic paint because I wanted to go from start to finish in one day, and I can't do that with oil paint. Normally, when I'm working, I will have 3 or 4 big oil paintings going at one time, and that's because I want to have an almost dry surface when I go back to do the next steps and then, the next push. So it helps me to always have several going. I know a lot of artists just focus on one piece and take it start to finish. And there are a lot of advantages to that, but I don't want to come into the studio and not have something I can work on. So I always have several pieces that give me, the best chance of always having something that's ready to work on. Okay, so I'll show you this painting, and even though it's done in acrylic, you can see my process, and you can see how I have no idea what I'm starting and what it's going to become. It just evolves. This one has no sound. So here I'm just starting with these 3 colors. I have a yellow ochre, a Payne's gray, and I'm not sure what the red is that I'm using, but those those are the three colors that I'm working with. So I usually start just by, sometimes I'll write things on the canvas, sometimes I'll scribble things, sometimes I'll make marks that I know are going to get covered up. But it's just, Richard Diebenkorn said you have to violate the canvas to get a painting started. So I kind of go by that philosophy that you have to throw something down there just so you have to respond to it. And you can see here, I'm not being careful, and I didn't start out to make anything that felt floral, but it just started going that direction. So I just went with it. But it's really super, this is obviously sped up. But that's kind of what I ended up with at the end of the session. And then that's the finished painting, which took, a little more finessing, but that's how it ended up. So you can see from the beginning of that painting, it was like just a globby mess. And I do mentor other artists by showing, working with them and showing them my techniques. And I always like to show people the messy middle that I have to, extract myself from on paintings all the time, because it's when you're painting from something where you already know what it's going to be. I find that to be a very different experience, where you can, that you're going to lay down certain areas of the painting. You're going to sketch out certain things, and then you're going to fill in certain things, and they need to look a particular way. This is a completely opposite practice where I don't know what's going to come out in the beginning, and it just all evolves. And sometimes there are many paintings that I've called finished that I've completely painted over, started over again. So that is pretty much an overview of my process and how I work. I would also like to say that um, spending that year in Aix-en-Provence, making all the friends that I did, and getting all the encouragement that I did for taking a leap into something that I had no training in, and going from an advertising business. I owned an advertising agency for many years, which I sold to take that year off and live in Provence. And I was a creative director, and I had a lot of facility with design and with using the design software. But as far as painting and creating something that was just, from within, was a whole new experience for me. But the positive experience that I had in Aix-en-Provence, working at the Marchutz school as my very first foray into painting, that was such a consequential moment in my life. And I will be forever grateful for the life that it has given me, and for the encouragement that I was given. I think sometimes we go through life and we'll say something to someone, and we don't realize the impact that it has on us. And I just want to especially thank Alan and all the people at the Marchutz School who welcomed me when I was old enough to be one of the teachers, rather than, and all the students around me were probably in their early 20s, making me feel like I was welcome and part of it, and I had something to offer. Was the first step in a transformation that has been the last 30 years of my life. So I just want to say a real heartfelt thank you for that.
Thank you so much, Suzie. This is so wonderful to see your process and your paintings. We can open it up now if you're ready for questions and discussion. And I see a couple of questions in the chat, so I'll just read those to get us started, and then we can open it up for questions from people here too. So there's one question here from Caroline that says, Suzie, what inspires your titles?
Oh, that's a very good question. I never title anything until the painting is finished, because I don't know what it's going to be, or the feeling that it's going to emit. I don't know. I mean, I said earlier, I consider this to be emotional abstraction. So what I'm feeling as I'm working is what I'm trying to manifest in the energy, in the strokes, or in the juiciness of the color. And it's when the painting is near completion, and I'm standing back, and I'm contemplating all the energy and the things that went into it. That's where the titles come from, and a lot of them are from a memory that is evoked for me by the painting. Sometimes it's just I mean, something might remind me of having strawberry shortcake when I was a kid living in Kansas. And I might give it a whimsical title like that. But they all come from whatever is that, that energy and that impression for me that comes out of the painting.
Wonderful. There's another question in the chat that I'll read from Carol. It says, why do you call A Pocket Full of Posies mixed media?
Oh, because that was my demo painting, and I did it. I started it with acrylic. So I painted it with the camera, with recording it. I painted in acrylic so that it would dry quickly and I could keep working on it. So, I mean, that video was very short, but that was, it was a longer period of time. But the after I finished it, I think I can go backwards here and show you. Um, well, no, it's going to take me to the beginning of the video. This finished product was completed with oil stick and oil paint
Mm,
within the background of the acrylic. So I call that mixed media.
great. And I have a question for you, Suzie. You started by saying that you originally were doing landscapes and still life when you were in France. At
Mhm.
what point did your practice transition to being more abstract? Was that while you were at the Art
Mm.
Institute in San Francisco? Did it come later? What marked that transition for you?
That's a great question. There was an instructor at the Art Institute, Jeremy Morgan. I think he was the painting department head at that time, and he was the biggest influence on my painting when I was at the Art Institute. And I was when I was painting, I was using oil, and I was painting. I mean, I was doing some things that were more architectural at the time,
Mm,
and he really pushed me to try abstraction. And he also really pushed me to try using acrylic paint because he felt like the oil painting, the whole, environment was more toxic than using acrylic paint. And I really resisted it. But I mean, I was at the Art Institute for 4 years and he had time to work on me. So I I switched over to acrylic, and I feel like over those years I mastered that medium, but I always yearned to go back to oil painting. But the foray into abstraction was something that he really pushed me to do, and I found it very I found it very, very difficult because I felt like what do I measure this against? How do I
mm,
know how I'm doing? How do I know that the idea that I started with is any good? He didn't encourage me to abstract from something. He wanted me to do it just purely as, you know, an idea or an emotion. And so that was where the change happened. And once I got into abstraction and really embraced it, I felt like, okay, I've found my path. This is what I'm meant to do. And I also went back to oil paint. Sorry, Jeremy, if you're watching. Um,
mm.
and that's something that I don't think I'll ever move away from.
Wonderful. Thank you. Alan, do you have a question? You'll just have to go ahead and unmute yourself.
Several questions, but my first, Susie, can you go back to some of the abstract paintings that were
Sure.
a
Mhm.
little bit in the beginning? I'll tell you which. Whoop, slow down. Oh, wait, just a second.
Okay.
I've got
I was trying to
something.
go all the way back to the beginning. Should I not?
No, just go slow. Go back one or two. Okay, that was good. The
Okay.
one, nope, the next one. Yeah.
I think
So,
this is the first one. Oh shit, there we go. Yeah, that was the first one.
okay, but there's several like this. I'm just because sometimes I see in your abstract paintings a really beautiful sense of light in terms
Mm,
of how your strokes are on the canvas. I'm just wondering when you paint, when you make your paintings, are you thinking about, like, for instance, this one, there seems to be a really strong sense of light,
hmm
or I feel light more than I mean, the colors are beautiful, but I'm sort of drawn to the light more than I am color. And then sometimes I'm drawn to the color and there's not as much light. But do you think about light? How, when you're painting, are you thinking more about the color or light? How does light play into? Because this, can you click through a few more?
Yeah.
Go down like this one, this one. Look at that. That especially. That also. And okay, so here, when I look at this one's a little bit different to me in terms of that idea of light.
Mm-hmm.
Here I feel much more the colors. I'm drawn to it in terms of the color and sort of the shapes and things, and less sort of this feeling of light.
Mm-hmm.
They're different, as you go through. But how do you, are you thinking about light when you do it, or is that just the way you do your strokes?
I do think about light, and there are a lot of times when I stand back and I look at something I'm working on, and I will go back and add a lot of light to it. I was just working on a painting yesterday where I just kept going back and adding lighter and lighter and lighter into it because I don't know. Sometimes it just it feels like it lends itself to the expression that I'm trying
Mm.
to put into the painting. And I do. I mean, I am trying to put light out there in the world, and I think that is a big part of it. It's intentional.
Yeah, can you go back
Mhm.
one or two? Another one more, this one,
Oops, that one.
yeah. I
Okay.
mean, I'm not talking about sort of putting lighter strokes on there, but just the way your stroke, they're first of all, they're very sensuous, but there's a feeling of light just all over the surface. I don't mean light colors. I just mean
Hmm.
light from the inside out, this light
Mm.
that's happening. I just wondered,
Well, I'm
do you
glad you
have a
feel that.
sensation of what I mean by that? When I look at this painting, it reveals itself a little bit differently, say from the other one that we were looking at. It feels like you're more interested in creating light rather
Hmm.
than color.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, it's not about the objects, although they're
Yeah,
important, but yeah, it's I'm trying to exude a feeling. And
yeah.
I'm glad you see it. I'm it makes me really happy that you feel it and that you see it because that's
Mhm.
the intention behind the work.
It's really beautiful, this painting.
Thank you.
We have another question in the chat that I'll read out if that's okay. From Joe. He says, in expressing yourself in your painting process, do you focus diligently on the joy you mentioned, or do other emotions ever project onto the canvas?
Oh, wow, that's a really good one. Um, yes, everything is there. Everything is there. What my intention for the final result is that it feels rich and energetic and uplifting in some way. I really don't do dark or heavy paintings, but every emotion comes into the studio. There's no escaping that. And maybe the putting the paint on the canvas is part of my own therapy to elevate my own mood and my own perspective on life, which I have to say during this time in history is it's something that I have to work on every day. There are so many things in the world that I feel like I can't fix. I can't make an impact, but this is something I can do. And if I can add some joy and some light into the conversation, then I feel like I've contributed something meaningful to the conversation. I don't know if
Absolutely.
I answered Joe's question. I hope so.
Mhm.
Well, if I could frame the question in a different way, what would you say are your motifs?
Um, well, motifs. I don't really think in terms of motifs, but I can tell you that since I recovered from my surgery, I'm discovering that there's a floral aspect to my work, and I'm trying not to fight it too much. I mean, these days I spent like almost a whole year painting things that make people say, "Wow, I feel like I'm in a garden" when they walk into my studio, which is kind of bizarre for me because I've never really, thought of myself as painting anything floral. But Yes, I mean, definitely like on this painting, Things Remembered. I mean, I feel like this has a floral motif. Um, I feel like a lot of what I paint is based on things that I've observed in nature, but presented in terms of just color or shapes or abstract forms. But I would say, the only motif that I could identify would be the more recent paintings that feel floral to me, like this one feels floral, and obviously this one. And a pocket full of posies, it's hard to get away from the idea that that's floral. This one I don't think is particularly floral. This one's not necessarily floral, and that one's certainly not. But I could see a hint of flowers in that one. Yeah.
But I think the titles are incredible in terms of motif, because
Mm.
if you go back to Things Remembered, I mean, it's an incredible motif. How did you, it's interesting that you do the painting and then you find the title. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
do you remember how that title came about in relation to, say, that painting, Things
I
Remembered?
Yeah, I probably, when I was making this painting, I was probably really deep in thought about children, family.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, that's what I remember in the process of making this painting. This one was a year ago, so it's a little bit less fresh in my mind. But yes, definitely. I mean, it's an urge to give a title that kind of honors what I was experiencing, but also maybe could evoke something in the viewer. Um, but I just, I think I was feeling very nostalgic in this painting. So that's why I came up with Things Remembered.
We have another question in the chat from Joe Brubaker. He says, Susie, what do you do when the initial volition slows down and you need to keep the energy and inspiration going? What are your strategies?
That's a really good question too. Wow, this is a good audience. Thank you, Joe. Um, well, that happens. That happens a lot. There is a painting on my wall right now that was a finished painting, and there were a couple of my artist friends in the building here who came in and said, "Don't touch it. No, walk away. You're done." But that painting sat there, and I looked at it every day when I came in. And it's like a big 74-inch painting, so it's not there. You can't escape it, and it just wasn't speaking to me. It just wasn't right. It was too sweet. It was just too. It just wasn't right. So I went back into it, and I completely changed it into something else. And my same friend came back and she said, well, it's finished again, so don't touch it again. And I still wasn't happy. And so I just went back. I got a great big fat brush, like a 6-inch brush. And I got some Payne's Gray paint out. And I took that brush and I just went all over the painting with it, so that I would have to do something after that to restore the painting. And so I had to look at it like that for a few days because it was oil paint. It took a while to dry. And I had a few moments of, oh my God, what did I do? But now it's again a completely different painting, and I'm nearing the end of that one. And I feel like I have to be my own catalyst, and my own worst critic. And I'm not willing to have something go out of my studio that other people are saying, oh, that's a great painting. But for me, in my gut, that it doesn't feel right yet. I don't necessarily want to make a painting that just is, I thought it was too sweet. I want to make a painting that is honest and it's conveying something that feels authentic to me. So that's what I do when I'm, when I'm stuck or when I'm feeling like I'm not there yet. I throw a monkey wrench into it that I'm forced to deal with. And it always comes out better in the end.
Other questions for Suzie? You can go ahead and just unmute yourself and ask a question if you have one. You're all on automatically on mute.
I have a question.
Please.
Suzie, I love this discussion about the philosophy of your painting. So I feel a little embarrassed to ask a question about the products that you use, but I know you've mentioned several times that you use oil sticks.
Mm-hmm.
When do you use an oil stick as opposed to oil from the tube?
Mm.
And also another sort of boring question, but of interest when one's thinking about toxicity. Do you ever think about using, or have you ever used non-water soluble oils?
Mm. Mm-hmm. Okay, both good questions. I'll start with the last one first. Yes, I have tried water soluble oils, but I have such a vast inventory of regular oil paint. And I've never been quite sure how they mix the two. I did get 2 or 3 tubes of just like the 3 primary colors of the water soluble. It has a different quality for me. So my, talk that I have with myself is that to the best of my ability, I try to limit anything that is toxic. I try to reduce the toxicity wherever I can. And to do that, several things. I always wear gloves when I'm working. I use very little of mineral spirits.
Mhm.
And only when I'm trying to do a really thick impasto do I use like a thick medium of some kind. I do sometimes. I think that, let me see if I can go back and show it. That one painting that I said was really this painting. I was able to get that effect by using oil paint with I think it's a liquid impasto medium that helps it dry faster, but it's also kind of thick. And then, cold wax medium mixed into the paint. So that would be probably my most toxic potion because I'm using the liquid impasto medium. Excuse me, but I mostly now I just use straight oil paint and I don't put anything in it. I don't mix oil into it and I don't mix mediums into it. I just use straight oil paint. And as far as oil sticks, I can't be without oil sticks. I use them every day and I have the whole R and F oil stick line. I have every color and they're wonderful. I use them just like paint. A lot of times I'll just take the oil stick and just put it right, just, paint with it right on the canvas. I also mix colors, mix oil sticks, one color mixed into another, which has a wonderful effect. They crust over, so you have to keep getting a fresh, end on the stick to be able to mark with them. And a lot of times I'll even use the part that I took off and mash it up and, get it soft again and mix that into my paint. I don't think of it differently from the oil paint itself. In the past, I used to use it for a lot of the mark making, but I've found in the last year or so, I really enjoy using the different sizes of brushes and making the same type of mark, but using a brush. And so the oil sticks, I use more like as painting instead of using paint on a brush. I use it to paint.
Thank you. I actually, lately I've been using a mix of regular oil and water soluble. At least in my experience, they do mix.
Oh, that's good to know.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you.
Yeah, good questions.
Here's another question from the chat. Caroline says, ICB Studios is such a lovely community. How often do you and your fellow artists critique each other's artwork?
Oh, that's interesting. Yes, we have. So the building where my studio is located, excuse me, is home to 180 artists. So, excuse me, there's always someone in their studio that you can call in and say, hey, will you look at this? There are critique groups that happen. And I have been in several different critique groups, but the one that is the most longstanding for me is one that involves people who are not in my building. Because I really, we all have each other, and we're a community and we work together all the time. But I'm really also interested in what other artists are doing in isolation, or in their own studio communities. So I'm in a group that is, we take turns every month and drive to each other's studios, and some of them are pretty far away. They're in different cities, different towns, but within an easy commute for us. And I value that greatly. I value both. The community where I am is incredible, and I tap into it on a daily basis. So I'm really super grateful for my community here.
Wonderful. There's another question in the chat that I missed from Pauline. She says, beautiful work, Suzie. Thank you. Do you process as you're painting by recognizing a particular character of the elements that arise out of your painting? Do you respond to the elements that arise while you're painting? And do you see how those may create a unity within the rest of the painting as you go along?
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, if I went back to that last video, where I'll just start it so you can just see the beginning of it. But here, when I'm working, I'm not sure what's going to come out. I mean, I didn't have anything in mind when I was starting here and just laying down, color and marks, and it was totally random. And so it's like what starts appearing for me. I didn't know that this was going to turn into something floral when I started. And it was actually, to Alan's question about light, this started out being really dark, and what I would call, like I got into like the messy middle. It's like, oh my gosh, what am I making? It's mud. And, I just keep going and saying, oh, I have to brighten this up, or I have to lighten this up, or I have to make some more contrast here, or get some more rich color rather than, everything mixed and mud. And at some point, you can see here, at some point I said, oh, okay, these are, it's flowers. And then I pushed it. Then it started coming out as something else, and then I pushed it, and then I went back and started making it lighter and brighter, and it became that.
Lovely. There's another question here that says, does music inspire you when you're painting?
I'm probably really a weird painter this way, because lately I've just been in a quiet studio, not listening to anything whatsoever. But sometimes I will put on music, and I like to listen to like blues, or I like old R&B. I once listened for a whole year to hip hop music, and did a whole body of work that ended up being a show in a gallery here in San Francisco, based on the music of Kendrick Lamar, who's a hip hop artist that I really love. So, sometimes I might be listening to Beethoven, and sometimes I might be listening to, Michael Kiwanuka, and sometimes I might be listening to hip hop. It just is, where I am at that moment, what I'm thinking about, and all of it translates into something that's energetic and uplifting in some way.
Suzie, I'm going to talk now. The reason I've been saying the question or writing the questions instead of asking is because my French bulldogs are snoring in the background. I didn't want anybody be thinking that somebody was snoring. So, do you see it translated in the paintings, like the movement and the energy, if it's something that's kind of rap compared to like a more calm classical piece?
I wish I had some of those paintings to show you. I don't. The pieces that came out of that particular body of work where I was listening to rap music, I mean, you wouldn't look at the paintings and go, oh, those are crazy. I mean, some of the things that I'm showing you here are a lot more crazy than what came out of that. When I'm listening to that music, I'm touched by the lyrics and I mean, what I like about hip hop music is we're talking about the human condition, and we're talking about the joys and sorrows of being alive right now. And it's not different from the emotions and the feelings and the frailties of being human are the same whether you grew up in Compton or in a high rise in Manhattan, or in Aix-en-Provence. It's the experience of being human is what I hear in that music and all the music that I listen to, and what I'm experiencing in my studio and what I'm trying to put down on the canvas in a way that someone else can, have a visceral reaction to. Did I answer that question?
You did. And I have one more question that is
Okay.
on a different topic. And maybe you did address this and I missed it, but do you ever do plein air anymore?
No, I don't. That might be a good exercise for me to go back and see if I can see if I can still do it. It's been a really long time.
Other questions for Suzie?
Yeah, Suzie, just as a prelude, I teach peace building and the arts at the Marchutz School and during the summer, and I'm interested in the arts and social change. And you talking about listening to hip hop music and what it brings to you and how it inspires you. I'm just wondering, and you want to take joy and light into the world through your art. How else do you do that? Does it inspire social action in any shape or form, or those of your fellow artists? Is there any collective action that you take because of your art?
Well, that's interesting. I mean, there are a lot of artists here, and myself included, who've participated in marches and demonstrations. I mean, I've participated in marches here in San Francisco, and once when we were in Boston. But I feel like, I feel like the best things that I can do right now are to try to live my life and have interactions with people that will at least, in some way, showing kindness and reaching out to people where I can make an impact. I feel like that has legs out, into the greater world. I mean, sometimes I feel like this is sort of a cheater way to do it, and I would really love to know more about what you're teaching. But I feel like I try to support the organizations that I feel like have a better opportunity to be boots on the ground or making changes that I feel like I don't have the ability to do. or the connections or the means, but by trying to support the work of the people that I think are doing the right things. And you know, those are the ways that I try to be active. Yeah, I mean, I suppose I probably need to think on that more about what other things in my life and, you know, what I'm doing that addresses that. But that's my short, off the top of my head answer.
But it's a great answer, and I really honor that answer. We all can't be activists, obviously, but what is it that inspires us to act in life in general? And I would argue that art is a major part of that for us, and how our art inspires other people to do that is critical. So thank you for what you do.
Well, thank you. I mean, I feel an obligation. I felt this every day when I walked onto the campus of the Art Institute because of all the important artists who had pushed through, like the Bay Area figurative movement and the abstractionist movement, who were trying to break new ground. And I felt like I had the gift of that legacy, being offered to me to join and to, try to do whatever I can to carry forward, and to do something meaningful now. And I kind of feel that when I come into my studio every day too. It's like I need to try to do something that will in some small way move the needle. And that's, I feel like I don't want to say that's the best that I can do, but I feel like that right now, that's what I am doing and how I'm addressing the things that are going on in the world. But Alan, I'd really love to know more about your program.
Well, yeah, that's a long story, but I was just thinking, when I look at this painting or look at a lot of your paintings, uh, I feel like there's one of the main sensations I get is that there's a sense of gratitude
Mm.
that comes from your paintings. And it's really if you're in a feeling of gratitude, I mean, that's what I see, that's what I
Mm.
sense when I look at this painting. Uh, and when you're in a feeling of it's really hard to be hateful when you're in a feeling of gratitude.
Mm.
That might be actually something that you're doing to
Mm.
affect social justice and social change and everything else. I mean, I don't know if gratitude is something that's important to you, but I sense that in the paintings.
It is. And thank you for saying that. I mean, I feel a huge sense of gratitude. I mean, I just, I am so fortunate that I've gotten to have all the experiences that I've had in life. I've gotten to be a mom. I've gotten to be a teacher. I've gotten to be, a business person. And for the last 30 years, I've had the opportunity to be a full-time professional painter. And, and as I said at the outset, I am so grateful for all the people who just were pivotal in, making me feel like, okay, I have something to offer. I can do this. And I feel a great appreciation for that. And I also, and that what you're looking at mostly in this slideshow is the product of the past year. I'm grateful to be alive. I'm grateful that I live in a place where we have good health care and where something like cancer can be detected in time to save somebody's life. And that happened for me. And so every day for me is a gift. And I do feel a huge sense of gratitude. And I do think that's probably why things have kind of turned floral on me.
Mhm. I think in terms of, what we're doing with Barry is really we're trying to discover because in terms of social change, most people kind of think, well, you got to be out in the street marching and doing all those things that you do, to create social change. But it may be the fact that you're alone in your studio and you're doing what you're doing and you're showing it to the public that there may be something in that. At least that's what we're trying to study with Barry, that
Mhm.
actually can lead to social change as well. It might just be in a very different kind of way.
Mhm.
But
We have
because, like
another
I say,
question. Oh,
when
go
I
ahead.
look at this painting, it's hard for me to be hateful. I can be hateful in my life, but it's hard when I look at the painting. It's hard for me to be in a hateful spirit when I look at this painting.
Yes.
Sorry, Rose. Yeah.
No, 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 don't worry. I have another question in the chat from Joe Long, and he says, given the intentions you take into painting, what do you experience with the reactions of viewers and clients?
Mm. Well, of course, the most gratifying thing is to have someone come in and have a visceral response to your work and say, I want to live with, I need to live with this piece.
Mm.
I mean, that's the highest compliment, but it's also for me that's the payment. That's more important than money or recognition or anything. It's, when somebody really relates to the work that I'm doing and it brings joy and it brings light and it brings something that is uplifting into their life and their home and they see it every day, that's the best paycheck I could ever have.
Lovely. We probably have time for one or maybe even two more questions. We're getting to the top of the hour here. So, any last questions for Suzie before we wrap
I,
up?
I'm curious. You mentioned Diebenkorn in passing,
Mm-hmm.
and I found myself wondering. I know you studied in San Francisco, so you are familiar with the Bay Area artists and all that. Who are your artistic heroes? Do you have someone that you feel you have has inspired you?
Oh, there are so many. I mean, um, I think probably Joan Mitchell is the most uh, obvious one, I guess I would say. I really am influenced by her work, but I think Lee Krasner and Elaine de Kooning and some of the female artists who pushed the abstract expressionist movement forward are, are big heroes of mine. And I feel like abstraction has taken on many legs since then, and it's become a lot more mainstream. But just the fact that they were trying to do something, they were breaking new ground, and they were doing something new was really important to me. But also, I mean, there are contemporary artists whose work I just really admire a lot. I love Alex Kanevsky. I think he's an amazing painter. Linda Christensen, who is actually a friend, she is a fantastic figurative painter, but it's abstracted figures, and her work is super expressive of emotions and just states of being. They're very human, and that I love how she handles light and shadow and conveys. You can just see a gesture of hers and you can relate to it. Um,
Mm.
yeah, those are a few.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Well, I think with
What was
that,
her
we'll
name,
wrap
Susan?
up.
That last artist, what was her name?
Linda Christensen.
Christensen, yeah.
Linda Christensen and Alex Kanevsky as living painters. Um, yeah, and Christopher Brown.
Wonderful. Well, I would love to give a big virtual round of applause for Suzie for taking the time to give such a beautiful talk and answer all these wonderful questions so thoughtfully.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much, Suzie, for taking the time to put this together and give your presentation. And thank you to all of you out there for joining us today for this talk. It is recorded, so I'll send it around after the talk by email, and so you can share it with your communities. But thank you so much, Suzie. We're so thrilled to have you as our featured artist this month.
Thank you. I'm honored. I am truly honored and appreciate just having the opportunity to do this. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care, everyone.
Thank you, Susie.
Thank you, Susie.
Bye.